2019, and we're recapping the year gone by through sectors that impact the market and the economy. Here is Ekta with a throwback at the pharma industry over the last 12 months. Ekta, over to you.
Well, thanks for that. It's been, in fact, a subdued year for the pharma index, underperforming the Nifty. While the Nifty has risen around 3% this year, the Nifty Pharma Index has slumped 8%. However, while it has been an underperformance on the index level, it has still been a stock-specific year for pharmaceutical stocks. So, for example, gainers in the pharma stocks included Divi's Laboratories, Dr. Reddy's, Ipca Labs, and from the MNC space, Pfizer. All of these stocks have gained anywhere between 8 to even over 30% year to date. But there were some sore losers, with the likes of Sun correcting over 20%, Cadila almost 20%, and some mid-caps like Spark, Wockhardt, Strides falling over 40% this year. Well, some of the most contentious stock-specific issues this year had to be with Sun Pharma. Though it emerged towards the end of the year, the stock, after its weak Q2 numbers and governance concerns cropping up, lost out around 25% of its market cap just in the span of a couple of weeks. On a larger level, key events emerging from the US, which is basically the mother market of all Indian generic manufacturers, included pricing pressure reducing versus last year. So it came down to around 9% versus 10 to 12% in the previous year, and key plants such as Halol of Sun Pharma getting cleared by the US FDA. But the FDA concerns for some companies still loomed. So, for example, Dr. Reddy's Duvada facility was issued 8 observations with 5 repeat observations, and Lupin's Mandiri plant recently was issued 22 observations. It was an important year for drug approval. So, for example, Dr. Reddy's eventually won the court case for anti-drug addiction drug Suboxone in the US. Biocon got approval for its second biosimilar pegfilgrastim in the US, while Aurobindo received approval for an antibiotic injection drug ertapenem, while Sun Pharma got moving with its specialty portfolio with the launch of psoriasis drug Tilrakizumab and approval of eye drug Zelpros. Other key events in 2018 included tender prices falling for malarial as well as HIV tenders, impacting companies such as Strides and Cipla. Chinese APIs seeing supply disruption as many shut capacity, and back home the government's flagship health scheme Ayushman Bharat being rolled out. Lastly, it was the year of M&A, with the biggest being IHH's acquisition of Fortis after an intensive bidding war, Aurobindo acquiring Novartis's generic derma business for $1 billion, and Cadila partially funding Zydus Wellness in the acquisition of Heinz.
All right, Ekta, thanks very much. That's putting things in perspective. Lots of movers and shakers in the pharma sector in the last 12 months. Let's move on now. Gates Foundation, the world's largest philanthropic organization, sees immense potential in India's progress in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals on healthcare and sanitation. However, it stresses on the need for the government across the world and in India to increase investments in human capital. Mark Suzman, Global Head of Advocacy and Head of Strategy for the foundation, spoke with Archana Shukla. Here's a look.
The primary responsibility and the difference between success and failure in meeting these goals actually is what countries do themselves. Even among the very poorest countries, and certainly among middle-income countries that are now very large economies like India. There's no question international aid and support can only at best be a marginal support. At the same time, international aid remains critically important in key areas, particularly in health, but also in agriculture, also in sanitation, and particularly for very poor countries like many of the poorest countries that are in sub-Saharan Africa. There we are seeing a growing challenge where many traditional rich countries that have been donors are having active debates about whether they should pull back. Are these resources still worth spending? Shouldn't they be spending more at home? And that we do regard as a worry, because arguably this is the moment where those interventions are at their most successful. We are saving more lives through vaccines, through antiretroviral treatments for people with HIV/AIDS, providing more opportunities in areas like agriculture than we ever have before. So it's not a time we want people to step back. We want both rich countries and poor countries and those emerging middle-income giants like India all to play their part.
You know, you speak about the governments investing themselves, and that has to be the larger part as far as working towards these goals is concerned. Is that happening now as far as, you know, investing in the intangibles is concerned versus investing in the tangible assets like infrastructure?
Well, there's a very interesting discussion that we are being part of at the moment about how and where do governments prioritize investments in what we call human capital. That it's easy to point to the investments in the roads, the electricity, the infrastructure. Those are all critical for economic growth, but in the end, any country is its people. And the core components of investing in people are really health and education. So we believe strongly, and one of the messages of the Goalkeepers Report and a lot of the work we do is you need to combine those investments. And that is what is actually going to drive the long term. It's sometimes challenging for politicians because politicians often operate more in terms of electoral cycles, and these are long-term investments over 5, 10, 15, 20 years because you're investing in the people who are going to be growing up now. They will be the voters of the future, they will be the workers of the future. So we're always trying to do. There are important improvements in how governments are making these investments. Absolutely, we think more can be done.
How has been the relationship with the Indian government in the light of what you just spoke about, investing in the intangibles, investing in healthcare, investing in nutrition, in education? Do you think the government is making the right amount of investments and the right quality of investments in India?
Well, let me take that answer in two parts. So the first is in terms of, are you prioritizing these issues? Is there a perceived strong political priority? And there, actually, it's been very encouraging to see this government, whether it's from the Swachh Bharat mission on sanitation, whether it's the National Nutrition Mission, whether there is the new National Health Insurance Scheme, that there are strong, tangible commitments to making these necessary investments. But then there is the quality of implementation. That is, again, something, this is not a challenge unique to India. Everyone struggles. The United States struggles in how to be effective healthcare. In fact, arguably, the United States is, in some ways, very ineffective in some of the ways it channels healthcare, given the amount it spends and the outcomes it has. And so these are just common problems that we're trying to address.
Look at the crude oil prices, where we are trading nearly 4% on the lower side. A 15-month lows is what the US crude oil prices now have done. It's a third straight day when we have seen a decline continuing for the crude oil prices. More than 30% down now from its October 4-year highs is what we were trading then, remember. And the month of November has been one big correction on the lower side. And December, while started okay, we haven't been really able to hold that one. And we've seen very sharp declines continuing, especially for the day-to-day. And the concerns are many, because even as we are looking at rising global inventories, the newer supplies in the markets just about continue. So whether you look at the US output, which is at an all-time high of 11.7 million barrels per day, or the Russian output, which is also at an all-time high of 11.4 million barrels per day. And then, of course, within the OPEC as well, we have seen the Saudi Arabia continue to increase output. And that's not all, because even as we are looking at higher supplies, the demand growth on the other side is a big concern. In 2019, the expectation is that the global demand growth is going to be lesser than what we have done in 2018. So everywhere that you look, there is a bit of a concern. The only positive sign really is from the OPEC and allies, who have decided to cut 1.2 million barrels per day from the 1st of Jan. But those details also are awaited, and there are, of course, compliance doubts on that one. So a lot of uncertainty and a lot of volatility is what we are looking at in case of crude oil prices. Paul Hicken is Associate Director for Oil, and he joins us right now to talk more about that space. Paul, hi, good to have you. What is your sense now with the kind of 3 to 4% correction that we are witnessing? What has led to this immediate sharp fall in prices?
Well, I think there's two things going on, which is one thing's that are going outside the oil market. We had a sell-off in equities yesterday, and it's really playing into the fears that the demand is not going to be there next year, that we're not going to have the same kind of demand growth that many had expected, and that has played into these fears. At the same time, we're going into thin holiday trading as well. That exaggerates moves in the markets. Because really, at the end of the day, the OPEC Plus agreement, the 1.2, was adequate for the market, but it just doesn't have that kind of kickstart it's almost the market's in wait and see mode, ready for these cuts to kick in, and to this floor that they've tried to put on the market is really being tested right now.
Paul, so what is your sense? I mean, even clearly the markets have not really taken in the 1.2 million barrels per day of a cut from OPEC and allies. Is that figure too small? Is that too late to start cutting output? Because where we stand right now, it's high inventories and the supplies are increasing, even from Russia.
Yes, exactly. We've seen that with Russia at the moment, and even the cuts from Russia, they're going to take a while to kick in. It's not going to be until the spring. And the fact is that the market is now, it's been gutted. There's so much volatility in the market, so much, and that volatility is characterized by that uncertainty, what you talked about earlier. And the uncertainty just doesn't come from what's fundamental in the market, the cuts from OPEC or what's happening with Iran, but also from geopolitical risk, what we've had with Trump administration, the kind of tweets, the trade war with China and the US. There's so many variables that it's almost put the market running scared. It's almost that they're almost on the sidelines waiting to see really to see the fundamentals until they really kick in, until we have this physical tightness from OPEC cuts, until they see that, it's kind of people at the sidelines.
So what is your sense, Paul, as we get into the next year? What can you expect, really? Volatility, for one, I am assuming is going to be constant. But what are the other certainties or uncertainties that we are getting into 2019 with?
Well, I think still the big unanswered question for the market is what's going to happen with Iran? Are we going to see waivers continue? Are we going to see this zero tolerance from the US? That's a big factor. How much is Iran going to circumvent and get around the waivers, the sanctions as well? What sort of level of supply are they going to get to market? How much is India going to take? How much is China going to take? These are the big consumers of Iranian crude, and they got the waivers, and they really want to continue importing that crude. So this is going to shape the first quarter of the year. Plus, how much of an appetite does OPEC and Russia have to see it through again, second time around? They showed it last time. They really need to test the metal this time and show it again. And these are the kind of factors. Plus, on the demand side, you've got the question is, what's the global economy going to look like? Especially with the trade war thing, is that going to ease off? Are we still going to see the sell-off in the markets? And is demand growth going to be there for 2019 that the market wants?
Paul, that has, of course, has been one of the concerns. It's not just supplies. The demand concerns coming out of Asia and Europe have been much talked about. India, which is the fastest growing in sense of global demand, also has seen a bit of a downward revision there. What is your sense? Is there going to be a pickup, or is 2019 really going to be a low demand period?
Well, I think we're in a really sense of uncertainty, and I think the question, you'll have lots of analysts giving different views. You'll have a lot of people in the market will say different views, and that is exactly what is characterizing this volatility right now. This kind of uncertainty. We could see prices jump out or go down. It's so many factors have been so many questions, so many balls in the air, and that is why the OPEC Plus agreement has not. It was adequate. It was a strong signal. It was a strong enough signal to the market, especially when we talked during the time it happened, when they were arranging a deal, and it didn't look like they were even going to get the 1 million barrels a day cut, and now they've got 1.2. You would think that is a strong signal to the market, yet there's so much uncertainty. The questions around the US, the US involvement, the geopolitical dynamics between Saudi Arabia, Russia and the US, these are all big factors for the market. And I think the only thing you can really predict for 2019 is that we're going to see more volatility.
Well, yes. But Paul, quite a bit of forecasts already are in for 2019. And what I can make, if I can, just come out with the roundup figure, most people believe that we are going to be between $60 to $65 per barrel for the crude prices in the first quarter, 70 to 75 for all of 2019 as an average price for Brent, really. What is your sense? Because these are slightly on the higher side as levels on where we are trading right now.
Well, I think you've got to see that analysts are going to be continually revising their forecasts. It's something that we saw when prices dropped from $86 a barrel at the start of October down to levels just right now. It's just below $60 a barrel, and we saw that sort of analysts took time to to factor these things into the equation. They were still calling $75, $80 a barrel, even back in the last quarter of last year, and that's a testament to how quickly things are changing and how much uncertainty and how many things are going on in the market. And I think it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to call a price for next year. I think we're still looking at our analytics division is still looking into these questions to set the price for next year, and I think it's very, very difficult to call right now.
Your point is well taken, Paul. Yes, forecasting crude prices is going to be one hell of a task as we see it right now. Thank you so much, though, for taking time out for us. So plenty uncertainty as we get into 29, especially given the kind of factors, fundamentals that the markets are dealing with right now. Macro, supply, demand, global growth, etc. So there's lots to take in, really. And of course, the currency play that is in the picture too. Prathamesh Malia of Angel Commodities as well now joins us to talk more about that. Prathamesh, hi. What is your sense on the crude oil prices? Because we opened our markets 2.5% on the weaker side, and since then we've only seen further decline in the global prices. How much of an impact of that has come in for the Indian prices, given the fact rupee also has been volatile? How are you reading the Indian prices?
Good afternoon, Manisha. I think for Indians, I think our markets as such, oil prices falling is a good news. But then, and if you look at it from an international scenario, oil prices falling does not spell out good news as far as all the fund managers goes. But I think it's too much of a fall that's been there. I think some bit of a recovery is possible from here on. But yes, I'm really not changing my direction. Just looking for a play for a day or two. I think possibly off around 2-3% move in just a day or two is possible, because it is excessive shorts that's been caught in this particular asset class. And I think rupee appreciation is a further blow, which is giving more fall in the Indian markets. But yes, if you're looking at just from the year close perspective, I think portfolio reshuffling will possibly have crude in its place, and because the asset has fallen quite a lot in this particular year, so I think it will get its fair share as far as portfolio reshuffling is concerned.
What's your sense on the metal prices? Because today hasn't been a great day for them as well. We started the day negative, and that is where we continue to hold. The global demand growth concerns is one of the reasons that has led to decline in this tangible sector also.
Yes, Manish, I think with all the risk assets falling, I think metals are a place wherein all the risk assets are concentrated. It will not be sparred, and 2018 again was not a year of metals. We have seen all the metals hammering by more than 15%. I think we should close the year negative only, but I'm not yet positive, even though there is just a little bit of a cooling that's been happening between US and China with regards to its trade war. We'll have to really watch out for what happens after 90 days of cooling period ends between US and China. I think uncertainty is a way for 2019, but yes, metals would close the year on a negative note.
Point taken, Prathamesh. We'll let you go at that. Thank you so much for helping us make strategies on all of those global commodities. But after farm loan waivers announced by MP and Chhattisgarh, the Gujarat government has waived off electricity bill worth 650 crores for rural consumers. News 18 Gujarat's Janak Dave joins us on the phone line with details on that. Janak, hi. We understand that the figure is quite big, but what kind of an impact would it make on a state like Gujarat, which is richer than many other states? But even with this kind of a number, what's your sense?
देखिए, निसंदेह गुजरात के किसानों के लिए कहीं ना कहीं फायदे की बात होगी, क्योंकि बाकी राज्यों में जिस तरीके की मांग उठी थी, लेकिन गुजरात में अभी फार्मर्स की लोन वेव ऑफ करने की सरकार की कोई योजना फिलहाल देखने नहीं रही। लेकिन जिस तरीके से गुजरात में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का मसला था, खासतौर पर किसानों को जो 8 घंटे की बिजली मिल रही थी, और उसके सामने जब इस तरीके से सरकार की ओर से जो एक्शन लिया गया, निसंदेह 625 करोड़ रुपए का बर्डन सरकार पर होगा। और ये जो फैसला है उसमें 2007-8 से लेकर अब तक जिन किसानों ने इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के बिल नहीं भरे थे, या उनके इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल नहीं भरने के बाद उनके कनेक्शन काट दिए गए थे, उन सारे किसानों को इस केस के या इनके फैसले के भीतर शामिल किया गया है। और इसका असर एक लार्ज स्केल पे ज्यादा दिखेगा, खासतौर पर गांव को देखकर। जहाँ तक शहरों का सवाल है, सरकार ने ये साफ कर दिया है इस शहरों में इस फैसले का कोई असर देखने को नहीं मिलेगा, और केवल गांव और जो मिड सेगमेंट के जो शहर है वहीं पर इस फैसले का असर देखने को मिलेगा।
जनक, आप कहेंगे काफ़ी हद तक ये स्टेप जो लिया गया है, दिस इज़ आफ्टर जो सौराष्ट्र में जिस तरह की प्रॉब्लम्स हमें फार्मर्स की तरफ से देखने को मिली थी, क्या ये उसका रिएक्शन है?
बिल्कुल। हाल ही के दिनों में आपको पता है जिस तरीके से 15 से ज्यादा किसान खुदकुशी कर चुके हैं और खासतौर पर बारिश कम होने के चलते स्कैर्सिटी का मसला है। सूखा कई जगह 51 तहसील है गुजरात में जहां सूखे की मार से झेल रहे हैं। कल ही केंद्रीय टीम यहां पर आई थी और तकरीबन 1725 करोड़ की डिमांड राज्य सरकार की ओर से केंद्र के सामने की गई है। तकरीबन 2500 करोड़ के आसपास का खर्च है इस सूखे से निपटने के लिए। तो उसमें से 1700 करोड़ की केंद्र के पास मांग की गई है बजट के तौर पर एक स्पेशल पैकेज गुजरात को दिया जाए और उम्मीद की जा रही है जिस तरीके के हालात हैं, चूंकि आपको भी बताएं कि 2019 में गुजरात एक बड़ा सेगमेंट के तौर पे 26 लोकसभा सीटें हैं। पिछली बार 26 की 26 लोकसभा सीटों पर बीजेपी का कब्जा रहा था। 2-3 महीने के बाद इलेक्शन की तैयारियां होंगी तो निसंदेह सूखे की मार और अभी पानी की किल्लत है तो आप अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं कि 3 महीने बाद गुजरात में जब गर्मियां बढ़ेगी तब पानी की क्या किल्लत होगी। ऐसे में सरकार के पास और कोई चारा नहीं होगा। तो ऐसे में एक बड़ा बजट अगर या स्पेशल पैकेज अगर केंद्र सरकार की ओर से दिया जाए तो निसंदेह जो किसान हैं उनको बड़ा फायदा हो सकता है।
Absolutely, Janak. Thank you so much for taking time out and explaining that whole thing to us. So that really is the whole thing. 650 crores is what has been paid out by the Gujarat government for the rural areas in sense of the electricity bills. And as Janak was pointing out, these bills stand from 2007 to 2008. So it really is last 10 years of unpaid electricity bills that really have been paid out as of now.